Hey everybody, Brother Beast here again with you with another video. And in this video I want to kind of go over a topic. A couple of my other videos I've made some statements and I kind of want to clarify the difference between some things. Today, in this video, I want to talk about the difference between courtesy and respect. To me, courtesy is a sort of a gateway to respect. The problem that I have is that almost everybody has a difference of opinion on what the actual definition of respect is. A lot of times it's misconstrued, as far as I'm concerned, and from my opinion, it's misconstrued as being a lot of people define it as fear, and I don't think fear is respect. Fearing somebody doesn't mean I respect them. Quite honestly, in most circumstances, I have no reason to fear anybody. The worst thing that anybody can do to me is kill me, and I'm going to die sooner or later anyway. So the reality is that I have no reason to fear anybody. That's not the same thing as respect. To me, respect is more of a higher level of courtesy. You can't actually respect anybody, in my opinion, until you get to know them enough to understand what type of person they are and what they stand for. Then you can eventually respect that individual. Now, respecting an idea or respecting a philosophy or something of that nature isn't the same thing as respecting an individual. When you respect an individual, you respect what they believe and how they believe it and that kind of thing. You don't have to agree with somebody to respect them. You just respect that they have their own opinion and they have a right to that opinion. To me, that's more of a respect thing. When you develop respect for somebody, it's because you've learned from experience what they stand for and what they mean by what they do, that kind of thing. And that's the only way you can develop a respect for them. If you don't know somebody, there's no way for you to really define whether or not you respect them. That's where courtesy comes into play. For me, courtesy is a gateway to respect. In one of my videos, I was talking about what I consider a biker and some of the virtues that I live by to define whether or not I feel someone is a decent human being. And now, in order to be a biker, I think you have to be a decent human being first and foremost. So I said that respect was one of the things that I try to live by in order for me, and that's one of the things I use to define someone else as a decent human being. Now, the end goal is to try and respect someone. That's kind of what you're trying to aim for. But respect can't be demanded. It has to be earned. So the final result is that you want to respect somebody, but you can't respect somebody right off the bat. That's why you have to live by the precursor to that, which is courtesy. Courtesy just means that you treat somebody appropriately in a manner that you would wish to be treated. You don't just being an ass to somebody isn't how you would want to be treated if they came up to you. When you don't know somebody, you don't treat them with rudely. Period. That's the way it is. You're supposed to be courteous in general to most people because you can't define whether or not you respect them yet. So that's where courtesy comes into play. I wanted to make this video because a lot of people have watched some of my videos and noticed that I use courtesy and respect a lot in some of my videos, those two different words. They kind of go hand in hand, but they're not exactly the same thing. Courtesy is an entry level thing. It doesn't, like I said in my previous videos, it doesn't cost you anything. There's no emotional investment in courtesy. Just waving to somebody doesn't cost you any emotional investment. If they don't wave back, you're not out anything. That's kind of where courtesy plays. Just being polite and generous and that kind of thing is just common courtesy. That doesn't necessarily mean that you respect somebody because you don't know them enough to have developed an opinion of them for them to have gained that respect. They have to earn that respect, and that's by a matter of time and association. You have to learn that over a period of time and earn it. In order for somebody to respect you, they have to know what you are, what kind of person you are, and what you believe in, and how you defend that kind of thing. So that's the major difference, and I wanted to go over that in this video because I know some people have made comments and have rightfully so, corrected me on a couple of occasions when I've misused those two words in place of each other. A lot of time, and the other thing I want to point out too is that sometimes when I use the word respect, you have to understand there's a difference between respecting an individual, a human being and a person, or respecting an idea. If you respect an idea, it doesn't necessarily mean you respect an individual who believes that idea. It's not the same thing. You can respect an idea without having to respect the individual who believes it. So if there's a difference between using the term respect, the word respect, when you're referring to an individual, than there is when you're referring to an idea or a philosophy or that type of thing. When it comes to respecting someone's emotions, that doesn't mean you're respecting the individual. You have to have respect for people's emotions because it's not a finite thing. So that's kind of goes along with courtesy. Being polite is simply respecting someone's emotions and that kind of thing. So using the word respect for those two different ideals, if you're respecting an ideal or respecting an individual, is two different things. So if I use the term respect in reference to an idea, it is accurate. If I use the term respect according to an individual, then that's something else completely. So I don't have to necessarily respect an individual or a group in order to respect an idea that they happen to support. It doesn't have to. They don't have to go together. Just because they respect one particular ideal or they support one particular ideal that I respect doesn't mean that as a group or as an individual they garner enough qualifications for me to respect them as an individual or a group. It's not the same thing. But that's kind of why I wanted to clarify in this particular video, because I have been corrected on a number of occasions, and rightfully so on a number of occasions. I have even misused the terms by my definition of them. So I'd like to thank those people that correct me on that, because it's one of those things that's, again, like I said in my previous videos, it's a hard thing to define because a lot of this stuff is very opinionated. It's all a matter of a personal point of view and a personal perspective. So that's how I wanted to, I just wanted to cover that in this video, is the difference between courtesy and respect and the difference in types of respect. Courtesy is just being polite. It doesn't cost you anything. There's no emotional investment. I don't have to include somebody in, I'm not judging somebody to include them in my life as a definition of respect. Courtesy just means I'm being polite and generous and that kind of thing. I'm just being polite to an individual who I don't know. There's no way I can possibly respect them because I don't know them. Waving to an individual is not respect, it's courtesy. It's a kind act. That's all it is. That type of thing. Talking to somebody is just an act of courtesy. If you walk up to somebody, there's a lot. The main reason I want to get into this is because I know that there's a lot of clubs, and I've run into this where there's groups of people who feel that certain things that are done are an indication of disrespect. And I fundamentally disagree with a lot of what they believe is disrespectful. Because to me, it's not a matter of respect. What they're defining as respect isn't the same thing as what I see as respect. So that's why I wanted to get into this, is because I've run into quite a few people who, through my actions, even personally, through my own actions, I have been confronted by certain individuals who feel that I have somehow disrespected them by not doing or by doing something that, in my personal opinion, has nothing to do with respect. It's just a matter of common courtesy. If there's some small rules and regulations that they go by, which is why I don't particularly support that group mentality, and why I'm generally define myself as an independent biker, because I don't agree with that group mentality. It doesn't fit with what I define as a biker. A biker is an independent individual. It's not that they never hang out with other brothers. It's just that by their very nature, they're nomadic. They're gypsies. They travel around. They're very independent, and they're very solitary. They're very withdrawn into their own privacy and their own lifestyle. So that it's, to me, that's kind of the difference between me and that group mentality. These groups set up definitions and specific distinctions, and that's kind of where I have a problem with that ideal. So when they tell you that you've disrespected them, it's based on their opinion and their point of view. So I don't see that as being disrespectful, because just because I don't cower in fear when you walk by isn't disrespectful. To you, it's to some of these people, it's disrespectful because you don't cower in fear when they're present, just because they're there. That is because they define respect as fear and intimidation, and I don't. That's the difference for me. But the common courtesy, for instance, if I go up to an individual who's in some of these clubs are very strict about how they look at things. If I walk up to an individual who happens to be a member of a specific club and try to engage them in conversation, that's a courtesy. That's just a polite thing to do. They're a biker. I'm a biker. We have something in common. So I want to engage in a conversation with you. It's not disrespectful to do that. But some of these groups, because they have defined respect in a different manner, feel that that is disrespectful for you to do. You're not supposed to walk up to them and talk to them. To me, that's just an act of courtesy. That's not disrespectful. So this is where I run into a lot of conflicts, and I've been riding motorcycles for a long time, and what I know as a biker is from a definition that I developed when I was a very young boy and was subjected to a large group of bikers, and I learned from them what I now define as what I know as a biker. But a lot of the clubs and a lot of the organizations that exist now have altered the way that they define a biker to the point to where it fits whatever it is they're trying to accomplish. And I don't really have a problem with that. Where I really have a problem is when they try to enforce that opinion on other people. And that's, in my other video, I described the difference between a gang and a club. Now, a gang are people that try to enforce their opinion on other people. A club doesn't do that. A club doesn't try to force you to follow their rules. That's not what a club does. A club is just a group of people who organize and get together and practice a common interest. But a gang is a group of people who actually try to enforce their point of view, their rules, and their regulations on other people. And that's why they're defined as a gang and not a club. So that's kind of the difference between the two, and why I want to make a strong differentiation as to my point of view on what's the difference between the types of respect and just common courtesy. Common courtesy is a way to develop respect for someone else as an individual. In order to, if they have certain ideals that you respect, and enough of those ideals to where you can develop a respect for the individual, that's a development process, and it starts with courtesy. It starts with courtesy. You begin to develop a relationship with an individual, and you start to learn whether or not the things that they believe in and the things that they stand for are ideals that you respect, and from that point you can develop an idea of whether or not you have respect for that particular individual as a whole. That's kind of the levels of progress from my point of view, and why I have a tendency to get into conflicts with individuals or organizations who have a different definition of the term respect. But that's all I wanted to cover in this particular video. If you have any questions or comments, just leave them right here and I'll try and get back to them as soon as I can. Up until then, thanks for watching. Live free, ride free, keep your knees in the breeze.